All I have to offer is words. Just words. 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 Words.
Nobody cares.
What's going on, my beautiful people? Welcome to Just Words, Nobody Cares. I'm your host, Ron Kane. On this episode, I am joined alongside the wonderful, the honorable Haydee. Our guests are Octavio, Blanco, and Blanco, the Uptown Voices podcast. This episode is a very passionate one that covers so much of our experiences living in Washington Heights. We talk about everything from community ownership, housing, harm reduction programs, district politics, and just everything happening everywhere in our hood all at once. Because the conversations got so deep, I decided to break the episode into two parts. This is part one. I hope you guys enjoy. Thank you. What's going on, my beautiful peoples, on this August 1st? But not that it matters, because it's about whenever you hear this.
Facts. August already.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Happy August.
And it's been a relatively warm one and muggy and all that good stuff, but you know, as long as the whales don't make it all the way to Washington Heights, we be all right. Today's guest, I'm going to jump right into who we got on deck because, as always, the lovely, the honorable Haydee.
What's up?
How you doing, my lovely lady?
I'm great. I'm really excited to have Octavio and Led here from Uptown Voices. Really excited to just tap into the fountain of knowledge that y'all have and the experience that y'all bring. But I'm great. Everything's great. By the way, speaking of muggy, I was in San Diego for 3 weeks, as you know, for work, and it's perfect weather out there, and everyone that is from San Diego would say, it's so humid here. It's like, what are you talking about? This is the most beautiful weather. You don't want to go back to the swamp that is New York right now.
Facts. Seriously.
There's no satisfying anybody because, when it's too cool or like nice and whatever, everybody's like, I just want to be in tanga season. The thing is this, or tanga Tuesday or whatever the fuck. But aquí, like in New York City specifically, this concrete doesn't let you breathe at all. Mm-hmm. And so you walk the streets and what you're smelling, and it's not like the lovely sense of the morning breeze coming off the fucking Hudson River. No.
It's a swampy smell.
That's why it's called Urine Town, right?
Is it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I didn't know. You're in town. Is it because you're in town and you're in town?
No, because
you're in town.
Because everywhere you go, it smells like urine.
Actually, San Diego, they did have a lot of places that smelled like urine.
Yeah, it's a problem.
Those other lovely voices that you're hearing on deck are our local brothers that are renowned. My brothers, Octavio, Blanco, and Espillat.
What's up?
What up, man?
How's everybody? Glad to be here.
I didn't want to do like a 1-in-1 intro because I'm like, coño, if I give one more props than the other, I'm like, coño, que fallo.
Yeah, you don't want to fighting. We'll be fighting.
But obviously you guys, it's a beautiful thing when people just join forces and make something even more bigger. Because Led, I know you've been doing Uptown Collective for a while, and Octavio, although we've recently crossed paths, I looked into your background in journalism, and you out here, brother.
Yeah.
You fucking interviewing the mayor like every other day. You out and about.
Yeah, but I gotta give it. That's all because of Led. Because if it wasn't for Uptown Collective, I wouldn't have that kind of access. So I always give thanks to Led because without him, that wouldn't be happening. I just happen to have the time to do it.
Interesting.
I have the time to do it.
No, but you're doing your thing too, though. Like, I mean, I was able to provide the access, but you running with it and doing your thing. You know what I mean? Like, someone told me that we do, like, again, I think Mamdani's people have been brilliant at harnessing new media.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I was an early supporter of Mamdani. So there's always been love with the people there. But like last week, who was it you interviewed? Sia Weaver?
Yeah.
Right? But prior to that, you had gone to the community trust, right?
Yes.
Right? So he was at an event for the community trust and then went to see Sia Weaver.
I know.
So then when he asked a question, she's like, how you know about that? You know what I mean? Like, so again, he's doing the damn thing. You know what I mean? So we're doing our thing now.
Thank you.
For real.
That was, I gotta tell you, I blanked out in one of our episodes where it was like, what's the episode that, stands out to you the most? Because this wasn't an episode. This was like, we've got the podcast, but we're also trying to be, on social media, like using the podcast as a platform to also, feed into social media and actually create for social media. But that day that you're mentioning was a real cool like journalism for Uptown Voices day, because in the morning there was a press conference for this company, this community land trust. I don't know if you guys have heard. On 172nd Street, there's like 2 buildings. Terrible. Their landlords are terrible.
Dude got locked up and all
dude
that.
got locked up, and so they created a community land trust, and they had this big like press conference, and I went and covered it. And then later that day was Mayor Mamdani's like big announcement of his housing policies, block by block. And I quickly like texted his people and was like, hey, I'd like to come. I'd like to be there. And sure, they said. And so I went. I took a city bike from the subway to the place because it was like really far, and also because it was in Brooklyn. I don't really know my way, so I got kind of lost. So I was like, let me get on the bike and I can figure it out. But I got up there and I got to sit in the press pool like with NBC, ABC, CBS, New York One.
Just mention all of them. Shout outs.
Yeah. No, but what I'm saying is like, what was very cool is like, I was like, I'd like to ask a question. They're like, sure, just make sure you raise your hand. And so I was actually the last person to ask a question. And, it was really cool that it was like, all right, this is whatever for NBC. Hello, Mayor. Da, 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 da. And then it's like, Octavio Blanco, from Uptown Voices. It was so legitimizing in a way. We shouldn't feel that way, but it was. It did feel like that. And I will say this. My question was the only question out of all the
fluffer questions.
All the reporters, they're all talking about these policy, like analytical sort of like policy questions. Mine was the only one that dealt with real actual people. And that's because we're here and we're trying to do a hyper local thing. Yep. So we're actually like, when we are trying to figure something out or we have a question, it's because the people here are dealing with a situation. It's not like esoteric. It's not something that's just like policy. Some policy wonk at a network wants to, feel smart, right? It's more like, people here have this issue, and we're trying every day to make sure that those are the voices that we're putting out when we're talking about the issues, which is not the only thing we do. We also do a lot of other like cool stuff. We talk to a lot of other people that are not like, that they could be artists, they could be community organizers.
But not to like hang up too long on that part of what you're talking about, the block by block thing. But am I mistaken? Weren't those people looking, rather than community land trust situation, weren't they looking for the tenants to own it?
No, they yes and no. Community land trust means that the tenants would be owning the building. So a community land trust and a tenants association team up, and then when the building, like, if the city says, okay, this building is, terrible, and you, the landlord, you've got to sell it. The community land, if there's a community land trust in association with the tenants association, then they get the first dibs at buying the building.
Dibs, but they don't. Do they get it?
They get the first dibs, right? So like, if that means if they can afford it and they can present their case and they've got the money for it, and that's what the community land trust does. The community land trust works with banks, like a community bank, and makes it so that when that opportunity comes, they're ready for it and they can pounce
There's
on
money in the bank. For
Exactly,
that. Yeah.
exactly.
Is it looking good for them right now?
I mean, we got to see what happens. I think they were upset because the city had been telling them, yeah, you know, you're gonna get this, and then what ended up happening was that the whole like portfolio of buildings, because there's more than just their buildings, was picked up by a community organization called Cloth, which is a well-known organization. And what C.O. Weaver said when I spoke with her was, this is not the end of the road for the Community Land Trust. We'll see what happens. And so we'll see what happens. But, you know, as long as they're still in communication, there could be something down the road. I don't know.
I guess where maybe I was lost in translation with all of that is too many uses of the word community.
I know one community belongs to an organization that manages the money, and the other is a community of tenants. So what happens to the tenants? Like since they're in this limbo, what happens to them?
I mean, they're still living there.
Yeah.
They're in there.
Do they pay rent?
Yeah, I think like everything else, I'm not as in touch with what's happening on the day to day.
I need you to wear your Barbara Walters freaking hat on and throw it and go check it out.
But yeah, you know, like in most of these situations, a lot of times what happens is tenants won't pay the landlord, but they're in court, and so the court sets up an escrow account, and so everybody is paying rent.
Yeah.
But they're like, I'm not paying the landlord.
Right.
So but you got to pay rent, right? And so they put the rent into an escrow account so that way, you know, it's on the record that
they paid rent.
It's paying rent. It's just, yo, I'm not paying this guy who's not taking care of my building. But if you're in court, you have to keep up with the payments. So that's how they do it. And then once there's some sort of deal, that money, I don't know how it will get used, but it's in escrow, right? So.
Both of you have lived your entire lives in the Heights?
Most of the time. I lived in DR for a little bit. Then I left the Heights for a little bit and came back.
Where did you go?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was born here, and in 3 months, my mom sent me to DR. You know, she's an immigrant mom. So, I was sent to DR to live in Villa Juana, in the city of the capital. You know, and then I came back a few years later. And then I've been living in Washington Heights. I was actually born in El Barrio, in Metropolitan Hospital. But I lived in the Heights almost my whole life. You know, when I became an adult, we bought a house out in Jersey. But I never really liked it, you know what I mean? And the moment we came back, you know what I mean? So,
oh, shit.
Yeah, so.
So you left the hood and came right back?
And came right back. Yeah, nothing like the hood. Like, you know, when you grew up, my mom still lives in the same apartment I grew up in. You know, she's older now, you know what I mean? So I want to spend time with the mom, you know what I mean? And plus, this is my hood. Like, I feel much better here. You know, like I always say, like, I take this, like, with a sense of ownership. I think we all should.
Yep.
Right, this is ours. You know what I'm saying? I don't care how much people buy here, whatever. This is ours. So that's the way I look at it.
For you, Octavio?
Yeah, no, I moved uptown to Inwood in 1998. So I was right after college. I have an aunt who lives in the city, Aunt Mary, and she lives. Hi, Aunt Mary.
Shout out to Aunt Mary.
She lives downtown. She was one of those artists who moved into. She's basically on Broadway. Literally, her doorway is on Broadway between Walker and White. So on the border between Tribeca and Chinatown. So she's one of these artists who lived down there. She's been there since like the late 60s.
Oh, wow.
And so when I left college, New York City was like the only city that really called my name because I wanted to live somewhere international, but I wanted to be close to my folks. My folks lived in Maryland at the time. And so I stayed with her basically my first year, getting my sea legs, and then looking for somewhere to live that was affordable. I found a place all the way up on Inwood on on Cooper Street between Academy and 204 in 1998. And I've been here uptown ever since. It's the place where I've lived the longest. It's the place where I believe I had a kind of extended adolescence. So like, it's the place where I think I became an adult. Where I really grew up and where I needed to. And also, what I found really cool about the neighborhood for me personally was that, as I grew up and became more, respectable, let's say, like work.
Un hombre respetuoso.
Not respectful. I've always been respectful. But respectable. No, just like professional. I was working and like, growing in my career. And the neighborhood also kind of was like, kind of getting, I want to call it more livable for me. Like I remember when I first moved up here, there weren't, since I'm not from here, I was sort of there was few places where I kind of like felt comfortable going to, like dinner, bars, da. But as I got older, got my career grew and stuff like that. Like, I felt like the neighborhood also sort of like grew around me, and I really have liked it here. Then I moved down to up to 207th Street. Up to like 207th Street area, Isham, and then I moved down to 181st, all the way downtown to 181st, on Pinehurst, and then finally, I got married and I have a family now, and we live on 179th, in Cabrini, and where we bought an apartment. So
Nice, congrats,
congratulations.
bro.
How has it been for both of you, seeing how the neighborhood in the area has grown and where it's at right now and where it's going to go?
I mean, it's interesting, right? Because there's so many factors at play. I grew up, in the 80s and like late 80s, early 90s, going through the crack era. So you saw the worst of it. And then, it felt like, in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, you see like the neighborhoods felt like we got out of the Giuliani era, where, and I think things were picking up. You had the whole of Dykeman change, you had Mama Juana, like, had this really beautiful, like, movement. And, we started broadcasting, Uptown Collective started broadcasting in 2010, and there was this energy uptown, that I called the Uptown Renaissance, off the Harlem Renaissance, right? Because it was this energy that was internal. There was the sons and daughters of the Dominican people that opened up bodegas and salons, and they were creating this movement, and it was us, all of us doing it, and it was a beautiful moment, and it was great. But then it felt like not just gentrification happened, because that started to happen too, but also, heroin is back in an interesting way. I think people don't know that. That's one of my biggest, like, I talk to Ron about this a lot, what I mean? Like, heroin is one of the things that drive me crazy, because I lived as a child through the crack era, and now I feel like I'm living through the heroin era at the beginning of it as an adult.
Right.
With a little bit more, a little more of a wherewithal and more intelligence, and having lived it once, now understand what I lived through at the time. Looking back, I understand it more, and it really does feel like we're being fucked with. Like it's like we're an experiment. And and it's through the podcast. Like again, this has been one of my things that I talk about a lot. And we had Councilwoman Carmen de la Rosa, and I brought it up to her, and then she told me something that blew my mind. That basically, there's only 2 safe injection sites in the whole country, 2, and one is in Washington Heights, and the other one is El Barrio. To me, that's on purpose. To me, that is a Trojan horse for gentrification, right? Because as soon as you get rid of us, you get rid of them, right? And what she said was mind blowing. She said that de Blasio enacted that on the last day of his administration at midnight, right? Like that's nefarious. You know what I mean? That's fucked up. So again, I feel like this is the new battle that we're going through. So it's gentrification. Yes, it's happening. Look at 207th. Looks like a whole different neighborhood. But then we also have heroin also creeping up, and not, I don't think we're meeting it the way it needs to be met.
How do you think it should be met?
Well, I think that, like, okay, so it's funny, right? So growing up poor in this neighborhood, right? Like my library card was my passport to the world. And I would when I was in 3rd grade, I had a teacher who was like a former hippie that got me into Native American. So I knew about every tribe. I had my favorite tribe, which was the Apaches, you know what I mean? Then I went through a period where I wanted to know about feudal Japan. So I learned everything I could about feudal Japan. And then I went through a period too, I was a kid, about the Opium Wars, right? And the Opium Wars really opened my mind. So it's one of these things that's been a lifelong, like I consider myself almost like a amateur heroin, historian, you know what I mean? but you see, like at that time, the Queen Elizabeth was the first drug cartel, right? Like they were selling, they were growing opium in India and then selling it to the Chinese. And what they did was they created a public taste for it, right? So, heroin, opium has been used for centuries, right? For pain medication, but to use it for recreation, that hadn't been done until the British introduced it to the Chinese and created, and I say all that to say that like heroin is not like any other drug. Heroin takes over in a different way. Like your body needs it. You know what I'm saying? So I've heard other people say, and it's true. I think heroin is almost like an agent of history. Like you don't have agents of history, not just people. Sometimes something that like from the plant world, from the pharmaceutical, could also have like this power. And heroin is that thing. And you say like a lot of times people like supply and demand. It's actually demand supply. Like with this, like the more you have of this, the more drug addicts it will create. And if you look at Kensington, Philadelphia, you see like these just look like The Walking Dead, look like zombies. Right, and I think we're at the beginning of that. So that's what I'm saying. It has to be like if you're gonna have a safe injection site at 180th, then you need to have police, sanitation, everyone working together to make sure these streets are clean, right? Because what it also created was like a heroin corridor, right? It's telling yo, sell drugs on these blocks because you have a steady supply, right? And it wasn't like when I was a kid, we used to buy weed and we used to go to the park to smoke weed. That's not how it is with heroin. I need to do heroin right now. I'm gonna do it where I get it. Right, so now you have like people on full wash doing heroin in the street, blood out. You know what I mean? And if you're gonna have something like this, you have to have the kind of safety measures. You know what I'm saying? This if all throughout 180th and throughout the neighborhood, but especially 180th, you see syringes on the floor. A little kid could trip on that. Your dog walking the dog. You know what I mean? So I do think that it's lackluster, the response thus far.
Yeah.
That's an understatement. Lackluster.
That's you being polite, my brother.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. I mean, what's funny, well, not funny, interesting and educational is like, it's true. Lead, it's been so eye-opening that, because he's read a lot about just like the history of opium and heroin, and now we've got fentanyl, which is like even more addictive and more dangerous. But in the beginning, I was much more of like, we need safe injection sites. And I still believe that addicts need safe injection sites and that they help to prevent overdoses. And also addicts go there to shoot up often. But that can't be the only thing. Like it needs to be a more balanced, community-centric way of dealing with this awful, awful epidemic. And right now, it's like F the community, and it's just like, let's save the addicts from overdosing, and that's going to be what we call a success measure. And yes, I'm glad that addicts are being saved from overdosing, but the rest of the community needs to feel like they're not living in a Walking Dead set with zombies hanging out everywhere. And our children shouldn't be, our parents shouldn't be scared of letting their children play in parks because they might get stuck with a needle. Like, you're right. Like, sanitation needs to be redoubled. There needs to be like a special like sanitation department. On Point has a van that goes around and cleans up, but they only have like a little radius that they actually do. They don't do the whole neighborhood.
And they're also 9 to 5.
And then right, exactly. Then they close, and then everybody who's using that is out on the street doing it on the street.
Yeah.
And I say like harm reduction for whom, right? Like for whom? Like you only care about one group, and that's a problem. You know what I mean? And again, it's one of those things that you've seen the neighborhood deteriorate, right? Things you never saw, you see them now. And I think it has to be addressed. I think it should, in my opinion, they should be closed. I don't think they're at this point. If you're not going to put them everywhere, putting them only in El Barrio in the Heights really feels like it's an experiment being ran on us.
And for our listeners that don't know, well, El Barrio is Spanish Harlem, so just in case, and the realities of how it's not coincidental. I mean, it's gotten to a point where we also do have to acknowledge that those two communities are the lowest area median incomes in the wealthiest city in the world, not just in the United States. So one not only has to wonder, but one has to acknowledge the realities that if you want, there is certain intentionality behind all of this. Meaning, if you got people, we're talking about children. That's one spectrum. But then the other end of the spectrum, the lifers, the people who have been here 60, 80 years. And they've been chilling in an apartment that's either rent controlled or rent stabilized, so they're not meeting what the landlords would consider to be, the market value.
Right.
So then they're going to be like, okay, we're not going to offer you services. We're going to talk to the city and be like, hey, you know what? We need a little bit of help. And these are realities too, because it's not coincidental that you have new developments, $500 million complexes popping up left and right, and they can hold out for as long as they would like for all of this to get better 10, 20 years. But you got somebody at 60, 80 years old, and they're like towards the end. I've seen people walk away from their apartments for like $10K. And it's like $10K in this market.
That hurts so much.
Okay, you were paying an apartment for like $500, $600, $700,000, a 2-3 bedroom. Now studios are getting popping up at $3,300.
Yeah.
Studios.
Yeah.
Up here in Washington Heights.
Yeah.
You know,
in the hood part.
In
too.
the hood part.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And so if we don't acknowledge that this is intentional, then at that point we have to also say like, okay, there is human weaponization, meaning the people that are getting sick and they're out in the streets. Yes, we should be looking out for everyone. But then there's transient people that aren't from the community that are coming in here and they're contributing to all that. So I do overstand the spectrum of like, hey, we should shut it down. And because then there is the reality too. There is from the opium epidemic of the Sacklers giving out Oxycontin. And so people getting fucked, and so there's billions of dollars sitting around for these type of programs, but yet they intentionally don't give the funding to projects like On Point because it's only 2 locations and they can't even get the access to the money, so they're barely getting by. And as you mentioned, you're basically bringing clients to these motherfuckers in the hood, and so you got an entire avenue of people just serving left and right. And you're talking about the cops, but at the same time the cops are more concerned with people jumping the fare for $3.
A cop shouldn't have to deal with drug addicts either in the same way, right? And the thing is that like people like my mom, right, who's about to be 89, who pays for a 3-bedroom. She's the problem, right? And these landlords
looked upon as the problem. She is not the problem.
No, but to them, she's the problem, right? Her and people like that are the problem, right? They want to get rid of all of us, and that's the thing is like when they get rid of us, like so the thing is that like on 180th and Audubon, it's always been a tough block. I grew up around here, right? But now you have people in just drug addicts right in front of the building doing drugs. And that's a problem. It's a real problem. And I think
hard drugs.
And again, it's the landlords. Like for example, my building, my apartment next to mine, they're warehousing that apartment because a lady died during COVID. She was paying $235. It's only so much you could raise that rent, so we're just gonna warehouse it. So we have people in need of apartments, but they're just warehousing.
And it's also with the small businesses too. There's so many closed locations, retail shops here that are just sitting empty, new and old. And if you want to look at renting anything like a square, a hole in the wall, it's $10K a month.
Easy.
Up here. Where you got people who are, shooting up around the corner. You got trash littering in the streets. There's a lot that is being blocked to let the people here in the community progress.
Yeah,
move
for sure.
forward.
I agree.
To grow.
And the thing that bothers me too is like with harm reduction, they'll use we've done 500 overdoses, like we prevented 500 overdoses, but to me that's not even a real good statistic, right? Because first of all, how many people overdose repeatedly? So that 500, how many was that one person did it 4 or 5 times? Because sometimes people OD in the same day multiple times, but they never tell you how many people got off of heroin. They never talk about that because that's not their motto. Their motto is, I'm going to service these clients to get the drugs they need. And to me, that's counterintuitive. You know, to me, if you want to get someone to stop something, letting them do it doesn't make sense to me. You know what I mean? And I think it's been a big problem. It was an experiment, and I think the experiment has gone on long enough.
I mean, I absolutely agree with you. It's one of those things that if you don't point it, one can't be too patient, right? But at the same time, as we mentioned, now it's an entire collective of issues. So from landlords warehousing apartments, and we're talking about housing crisis. We got a shit ton of empty lots up here. Then we're talking about retail establishments, right? Because if no one can even afford to operate a business, then no one cleans up in front of those sidewalks. Those sidewalks look like shit. And then you throw in the people that are sick, that are fucking literally camping out in front of those spots. So, people aren't recognizing that, like, we're strategically under attack at this point. And what's unfortunate too, I think, within our community, that we fail to communicate and convey this bit of information with an ethical approach. Sometimes, you see people fucking highlighting these brothers that are the Walking Dead and like zombies. They get 10 million likes or whatever the fuck, and all it's like, look at this junkie in the hood, and then keep talking shit about our neighborhood. But if the New York Times writes a nice article about the fucking west side of Washington Heights, then they're over here advertising for motherfuckers to move in.
But there is a series in the New York Times where they like profile couples that are moving because of the market, and there's a number of people who are making moves uptown because they can afford to live up
There was
here.
a series they did about pre-war buildings. And they talked about the highest.
And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, are they not seeing what I'm seeing out here? Yeah. No, bro, this shit is wild.
I want to say though, what Led was talking about in terms of what Carmen de la Rosa told us about that midnight opening, like without any community input, without any announcement. It was just like, oh, by the way, On Point is opening, and that was like at midnight on the last day of de Blasio's administration. That, I don't think that was like reported anywhere at all until me and Led were doing Uptown Voices, right? Nobody heard about that, so it was just like, oh, it's here, okay. Also, I think, that just goes to show, I don't recall seeing that reported anywhere
at all.
Fact check me, but I don't recall that being reported anywhere. The reason I bring it up is that this community uptown needs people, journalists, people like Led and me and you to be the voice of the community and make sure that people are accountable for the things that happen here. And I think that what you're doing, what we're doing is a part of is building that infrastructure, because we don't have like the New York Times devoting reporters to Uptown. We don't have
what are the gratis joints? Not Diario, but then we have like some
AM New York
or whatever,
or Especialito.
Like
and, Manhattan Times.
Are the motherfuckers reporting anything, or is it just ads?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I know Manhattan Times for many, many years was a good resource uptown. I don't know where things are with Manhattan Times right now.
I know from personal experience, nobody from the hood was telling me they were reading the Manhattan Times, but no shade on them.
Yeah, no.
That's one of my clients, so I would never shade.
But what I'm trying to say is that I think and I hope that we can keep doing this for many years, and that we can expand what we're doing to do more of it, right? To grow it, so that we can report more on the issues that are important to us, and the people in this community that are doing pretty fucking awesome shit, which is part of what I love that we do. So we're not just about, talking shit about the issues. We're also shining a light on all the people uptown. There's so many people, community builders, artists who are doing amazing shit, and they don't get the shine.
Now that, because you guys have been doing a phenomenal job on highlighting amazing people, and y'all also went above and beyond with talking about like all the candidates that were running for the congressional race, and given the amount of insight that now you guys have from the one-on-one relationships, talking about Carmen, I know it's her, she's wrapping up, her term's already up. Like, where do you guys now either see the future, or because we're talking about hoping for all of this to grow? Where do you guys personally feel things, like what's the trajectory of everything happening moving forward?
In terms of what?
In terms of the relationships with the politics and the transparency, but then how much information you guys can share.
I mean, listen, I think I've always thought that it's very important to have, good working relationship with your politicians, right? Like, that helps, right? Like, that you have informed citizens that work hand in hand with their elected officials to get shit done. I've been a big proponent of that, right? And especially, a community like ours is so tight-knit, I think it's very important, right? And I think what we did, what was really amazing is that, especially for that Congressional 13th District race, right, we interviewed all three of the candidates at least twice, right? And we had them on repeatedly. And
for an hour each time.
Right. And so that was important. And I think that, like, it was one of those things that, I think, to be honest, that race was decided by 2,000 votes.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean? Close. And someone today there was a protest because ICE was up here on Friday, right? And I was the first one to post a video about that, and it really, went kind of like really viral. And so they had a protest there today. And this woman came up to me today. She was like, "Lad, my proudest moment with you is when you endorsed Daria Lisa before the election." She was like, that took balls, right? And I think that you helped to sway that election because people believe you, they trust you, and it was such a small, and that to me says a lot, though, right? Like, we put it on the line, like, we gave you the facts, but then I couldn't let Espaillat slide because AIPAC, right? And Espaillat, like, Espaillat once drove my mom to the polls back in the days. He's been here forever.
Yeah,
right. You know what I mean? Right. But I wasn't gonna let him slide. You know what I'm saying? And it was like, I knew that battle was coming between him and I, right? And I knew, that it would. I'm gonna say something I never really told on the air. Like, I was actually approached by Espaillat to be the social media manager early on. But it was going to be to basically be like a hatchet man to attack Daria Lisa. You know what I mean? And then the more I saw her, and I'm like, and the more I saw with the AIPAC shit and how you say that money means nothing, but you can't call it a genocide. Like, you know what I mean? And I think with that alone, I think we've been, very, helping inform the people. But I think it continues, right? Like, now we're going to hold Daria. Like, I love Daria. I think she's great. But we're still going to hold her, have her on as much as possible, push her, and push all the politicians, right? Because, like, I think we can no longer just be like, let them rock, let them do what they want. Like, it got to be like, you have to pass certain tests. I'm sorry. And that's what it is.
Yeah, man. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just wanted to piggyback on that because our community has been talked down to and ignored. Not by just politicians. They might be doing it because they know that the media has been ignoring and talking down to us because they don't understand us. They don't treat us with the respect that we're due. And when you were talking about the neighborhood and the changes and how does it change? Like, one of the things that I really came to appreciate about this neighborhood, being an outsider to the neighborhood, was that all the growth that I was seeing in the 2000s, it was mainly by the second and third generation sons and daughters of those Dominican immigrants that actually kept the blocks alive, right? So the Dominican immigrants were here when the Irish and the Greeks, bounced, and the Dominican immigrants are the ones that kept the blocks alive, kept the businesses going. Their children, people like Led, people like yourself, may have gone to college, gotten education, left to go to like Massachusetts or South Carolina or California, but they want to be close to their folks. So they came back to the community, and they know and they saw what now all the realtors and everybody else is seeing, is that there's like good bones in these buildings. There's like really nice blocks. We've got great parks. They came back and they started raising their families here, and they started opening businesses here with the knowledge that they had acquired from their Dominican immigrant parents and also from their, education here in the United States. And I loved that. I thought that was great. And I've always wanted to be kind of like a part of that, even though like I wasn't like born and raised here. At the time I was doing what I could, but I had a career in journalism. I was working in Midtown, so I wasn't here as much as I would have liked. But I was always a fan of Led Black and Uptown Collective. I tell this story, I reached out to Led. I emailed him because he had his contact. And I was like, yeah, I'm a fan. I'd like to meet you. Let's grab a coffee. And this is like in, I don't know,
2011, 2012.
Like that.
Early.
Oh, okay.
It's a cold call.
And I don't know who I expected Led to be. Maybe because I was in the media world, I kind of maybe expected a media guy to show up. But Led showed up, and he was just like a guy who I'd be friends with. You know what I mean? Just like a person who I vibe with. And yeah, he was a media guy because he knows social media and everything. But, he's got a job that's not that, right? He's doing another thing. So this is like his passion project. I thought it was like his full-time thing. You know what I mean? I was just kind of blown away by the passion and everything. And so ever since then, I've always wanted to do something like collaborative with Led, with Uptown Collective. And then just lo and behold, things worked out in a way that, a year ago, we decided, let's do this. Let's do this podcast. Let's make it consistent. Let's put it out every week. We're going to have something. We're not going to miss. Yeah. And now we're doing twice a week.
Yeah, we do it twice a week. Right? For those who don't know, so on Tuesdays, we do like a standard Uptown Voices. So standard Uptown Voices is him and I interviewing somebody else. So it's really
feature. It's a feature.
Yeah, it's really about the person. So these are the people like yourself, like you said, people like Neria from Noma, Martin Collins, Dave Walsh, Dave Hunt from Coogan's, like the people, Tom Sanford, who's the artist, is talking to those people for over like an hour or so, getting the behind the scenes. And then on Sundays we do a live that we call Black and Blanco, right? Led Black, Octavio Blanco. Black and Blanco. And it's usually just me and him just chopping it up. We might devote 20 minutes to someone if there's something pressing coming up, if there's an event that we want to highlight. We might give someone 20 minutes to talk it up, chop it up with us. But then for the rest of the time, we're just going and we do it live on IG, live on YouTube. And and it's a real good one of our best episodes so far was election night. So election night, I wanted Darilisa to win, but it wasn't a given. You know what I mean? So we went live because everyone was feeling that anxiety. You know what I mean? And it was beautiful because, that was like our biggest live. Merrill was on, the community was on, and everyone was kind of like, fingers crossed. And then we were together when she won. So we were getting some signal chats that kind of behind the scenes with the teams, whatever. So I'm saying it looks like we winning. I thought he was like, don't say that because it's not official. I'm like, yo, my man, you know what I mean? I don't know. And then
we had all the we were learning as we were going, and so we had the poll numbers coming in.
We went to the official website to show you. So we were telling people the numbers as they came in, as they changed. So we and then when she won, I lost my shit. Yeah. Everyone it was really cool, and that's what you do it for. You know what I mean? To kind of create community.
And we had tons of people on that live. It was dope. And what was cool about it is everybody was like interacting on the chat, interacting with us. Like when we were like, where do we go to find the numbers? Somebody on the chat was like, here's the website. You should check it out. Okay, boom, put it up. And so like it was really, really cool. And I think we have been able to like I say, we captured like lightning in a bottle. And I think I think like to keep going on that about the second generation, the children of the immigrants. I think what happened with On Point, I don't think that's gonna ever. If we're around, and if people like us are around, to either shine a light on it, it's and also with the that whole battle against gentrification of Inwood, the Inwood is not for sale. I think that was a big turning point for the community also. I do feel that the younger, but not like super young, the younger generation, I'm just gonna leave it at that, is more
not trying to give props to the new Dominican immigrants. No.
What I'm saying is, I think that because of the language barrier in the past, because of the age barrier in the past, because of the way that traditional media would like discount those people, right? Those older people, those immigrants, those non-English speakers. What does it matter? I think that today, if we can make sure that we're serving the information to people of our generation who are living here and who give a damn, right? You will start to see changes. And I think that with the election of Daria Liza, it was that, to me, is emblematic of the kind of change that can come when you've got a group of a population in this community that's of this community that cares about what's going on in this community, plus people like yourself, like Led, like me, who are making sure that we're informing folks about what's going on. So like, I think in the past, people may have voted for a certain candidate because that's the candidate that they'd heard of. Did they know what the policies were?
I mean, I think Espaillat's on opening there with the first generation of immigrants that came. And since they were forgotten, no one paid attention to them, then he was able to harness that block of voters. And now I'm wondering, like, how are these block of voters gonna react now that Espaillat's gone? And from the videos that were posted, that you posted, of Daria Liza and her team getting attacked by supporters, like, where now that Daria Liza is gonna be in office, how are they gonna vote in the next election cycle? I mean, this is a thought that just
I don't know how they're gonna vote, but I think there was a lot of discontent with Espaillat. There was already there with older voters. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people felt like he came around only during certain times. I think, what I'm hoping that Lisa does is similar to, what Mamdani did, right? Pothole Politics. Just get shit done, right? Yeah. Fix the potholes, do things, don't just name streets after Latinos, right? Like, who gives a fuck, right? Like, you know what I mean? That doesn't do nothing, but make the Latinos here not leave, you know what I mean? So I think that's super important.
Yeah, and stay engaged, because I think that was also one of the big, one of the feelings that a lot of people had across the board was like, where has he been? I haven't seen him so much, stuff like that. And I gotta say that it's
sure.
It's water. Yeah. It's just,
we got a drink.
It's Just Words water. It's magnificent. This ain't just water. This is Just Words water.
It's just vodka.
Wow.
No, but what I'm saying is like, I think that also what kind of I think might have swayed things was that we shined a light onto the ill politics that Espaillat in his desperation that his team and him were running. This like anti-Haitian ism, and I think in a way like a lot of people in the Spanish speaking community peeped it. They knew about it. But I think a lot of people in the non-Spanish speaking community, they had no idea.
I was really like I was telling Octavio, right? Like I was early on because, you know, I'm a social media manager for so many different sites, right? So I spend a lot of time on social media, not so much just strolling, right? You know, just scrolling, but looking at trends and things of that nature, and also like I spend a lot of time on Dominican social media, right? So what was interesting about Espaillat I was telling him, I was like, yo, wait a minute, this is not regular. This is coordinated, right? Yeah. So there was a high-ranking person in Espaillat's campaign who took a leave. His name was Roskin Pimentel, right? He's not working for him, but he shows up in DR, right? And then is basically doing the rounds of all the influencers in DR and saying things that like, Mamdani is working with Daria Lisa to replace the Dominicans in the Heights with Haitian communists, right? And the crazy shit is, and then they even question her Dominicanness, right? Her name is Daria Lisa. Yeah. Like, there's no non-Dominican named Daria Lisa, like, first of all, right? Like, it's that part of it, right? But also was very insidious and gross, right? Is that they started that over there. To me, that doesn't even make sense as a strategy. You're appealing to Dominicans on the island with the Haitian shit. Here is different. You can't call someone a Haitian as a slur. We're all in this together here, right? So for you to bring those tactics was dumb and it was short-sighted. But then what was even worse was that they actually brought, I'm not saying he did, whoever did this was a strategy. They actually brought influencers from DR to the Heights, to Inwood, to Dykeman, to the Bronx. And they're talking to people, and there's people that never cover American politics. Their shit is just DR, and DR has enough of stuff happening there that they could cover that. But they were coming here on the street. That's a budget. That's money. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? That takes money. And again, like, Espaillat lost the African-American vote. Oh, what do you think when you go anti-black?
Yeah, well, that's what happens. Who do you think?
That's ridiculous. You know what I mean? So that was such a short-sighted, and I think he tarred his own legacy. Right, because at the end of the day, he's been around forever, right? When we had had conversation with him, I said, "Yo, just get rid of APAC, let it go. Like you don't need it." Like, but he wouldn't do that, and he wouldn't pivot like he needed to do. And then when he went there, I think he destroyed, his legacy with that. To be honest.
Yeah, and I think that the already progressive, like you say, African American bloc, but also just like regular white voters who were like, wait, he's what? Like, why? Huh? Like, once that started to be making the rounds, because we do our podcast, well, it's bilingual, but very mostly in English, I think people started to get like really freaked out about this. Like, why is this man like fomenting hate in this way? Or why is his team anyway? But under his name,
someone approved it.
Yeah, he could. You also distance yourself. He never did that, right? Yeah. So
yeah. But is there concern among the I guess within the circles that y'all chill with, that one, he didn't lose by a lot, as we mentioned.
2,000 votes.
2,000 votes. Right. Oscar got like
2,000 votes.
Exactly. Maybe did he fuck up by not showing up to that forum, Adriano?
So I have a theory.
This is just a theory.
So I'll say this, right? I did
for the FBI music.
I'll say this one thing with Espaillat. Espaillat is a person. He's a people mover, right? Espaillat gets people to go places. I did a panel with Espaillat, with Robert Snyder, with Raquel Cepeda, the author, at Amistad, the school. I forgot the name of the school. The school is on Sherman and 204th, and it was packed. Had New York won, he gets people out.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah.
There's a lady in my mom's building that she's one of these old school Espaillat supporters. They get people out. No Espaillat supporters were there. There was not one. There might have people that strays that came in that they don't know the circle. But if that place if Espaillat wanted to send his people out, that church would have been packed to the rafters, and they would have been vocal. but that didn't happen. So in my opinion, he did that on purpose. He pulled out knowing he wasn't going to be there, and it was about, you know, lifting Oscar up, putting the two of them together, right? So he could hopefully, Oscar could cancel her out. Because Oscar, listen, I have a lot of love for Oscar. I think Oscar's brilliant.
Yeah.
There was no chance he could win.
Yes.
But I think I love his ideas. I've known Oscar for a long time. I've worked on projects with Oscar that were community affirming projects. I'm not taking anything away from the man. He just couldn't win. He didn't have the apparatus behind him.
Yeah.
Right? But I think Espaillat was another underhanded trick. I'm saying I'm going, and then last minute, don't show up, and let the two people go at it to each other. And now the thing was like, that Elisa is not a politician. Right? She didn't come. She's a community person. She's an organizer, educator, right? And I think that sometimes she can't hide, you know, her anger. And I think I'm that way too. Like once I know I got played, I'm like, oh, these motherfuckers playing me.
We broadcast that live, and it's on our YouTube.
Yeah.
If you check it out,
you can see
you'll
the whole
see
thing.
her face. She's just like this.
You could tell she realized, oh, these motherfuckers played me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And this is a game. So I really do think it was another. And again, it was a great chance for you to be there. Yeah. With the community, because you're gonna be on Brian Lara, right, on WNYC. You did that. Yeah. You were New York one. You did all of those with her, right? But the community one,
you went out to New Jersey to be on Telemundo,
right? But the community one, right in the heart of Washington Heights, with everyone in person, you can't make it, right? So I think he did it on purpose to give Oscar like that push that will help him take votes away from her.
Yeah, he was hoping that Oscar was gonna like be his like, you know, he's gonna help me to take votes away. Yeah. You know, he's gonna erode that, and it didn't happen.
It did. It erode. In your opinion, you think those votes actually were taken away from him?
I think it was taken away from both. To be honest, I think it was taken away from both.
That gap. Looking at those numbers,
it's tight.
It seemed tight. As if Oscar took a lot of people from both ends. Like if the race would have been just Daria Lisa and Espaillat, I think it would have been even closer. You know, and so it's which is why, like, I mean, once again, you guys being on the inside, you know, I was really confused as to how I didn't hear this man say, "Oh, you know what? Fuck it, I'm gonna go again as an independent." Like I haven't.
That still could happen. You know, it still could happen, which I'm scared of. But you know,
or as a right, or as a
it could. No,
this is just a theory.
No, exactly. It could happen. And you know what I realized too is that like